think our generation is caught between one foot in the whole kind of thinking like a boomer versus one foot kind of in the millennial space, and really trying to figure out where to go and what to do.
What is up, Impact Heroes? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Rick Ornelas. Thank you for spending some time with us today because we know time's a valuable resource and we're going to make it worth your while. I appreciate each and every one of you, not just for listening, but for who you are. I know you're sparking change to make the world a better place every day, and I am humbled and grateful for your efforts. It takes all of us doing our part to spread positive change, and that's what this show is all about. Motivating you with stories of struggle, courage, and hope to empower you to make a difference in your life and the lives of others.
Are you interested in having Rick speak at your event or business? Here is what others have to say.
Did not know his story, and it was so inspirational, and his presence on stage, his authenticity was just incredible.
I absolutely loved his performance. It made me feel some type of way.
If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, hire Rick. I promise you this, you will not be disappointed.
Visit rickornelas.com to book him today.
Welcome back, Impact Heroes. Today we have the pleasure of speaking to our latest iSpark Change social impact hero, and this is going to be a social impact focused treat for you, all of you. So our guest today is a leader, coach, author, and innovator. He's a seasoned high-tech executive with a broad global experience leading and driving innovation and the overall strategic agenda for multiple highly successful companies. He's a believer in the core ideals of leadership and knows you have to be great to have success. His North Star as an enlightened leader includes gratitude, resilience, empathy, accountability, and transparency. He firmly believes that if we improve our ability to listen and focus, we can move forward as a unified entity. His book, Chase Greatness, is not only highly rated, but enlightening, practical, and a must-read for all business leaders. I highly recommend it. He's just an all-around great human being and someone who is passionate about helping others become encouraging leaders. Please welcome the informative, brilliant, and inspiring Rajeev Kapur. Rajeev, welcome to the program.
Wow, thanks, Rick. I gotta record that and have it like follow me, like whenever I walk in a room, like show my wife and my kids and people, and whatever. It's awesome. Thank you so much, and fight on, by the way.
Yes, and fight on. We're a fellow Trojan. So you are.
That's right.
Wait, you're the first Trojan I've had on the podcast.
Wow, that's it. So, after this,
I know I'm gonna have to get some more, but thank you, thank you for pointing that out, and thank you for enjoying the intro. I enjoy doing those intros, and I take pride in them. I because the way I look at it, if you think of like if you ever seen any movies where they have the medieval times, and they would have the person come and introduce the king or introduce the person that was coming out, and they would make it as grand and as bold as they could. That's what I try to do when I introduce you. So,
well, it's funny is I was just I was in Italy for Christmas, and we were in Rome on New Year's Eve, and I went to the Colosseum. And I did that whole little speech that Russell Crowe does. My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, Commander of the Armies of the North, General of the Felix Legions. That whole speech. I did that whole speech, and my kids were looking at me like I'm some sort of crazy fool. But hey, you know what? It was fun for me. So
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. I'd love to see. Do you have this on video?
Yeah, I think I have it on video, but I could do it. I could probably even recite it for you right now.
Go for it. Give me a few lines.
Oh, well, all right. So, okay, let's see. So, how's it go? My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, Commander of the Armies of the North, General of the Felix Legion. Commander of the Felix Legion, Royal. Anyways, I don't remember the rest of it, but it goes. Oh boy, I wish we could edit it and restart all over again. But anyways, it goes for a couple of lines and it says, I am what's it say? He goes, husband to a murdered wife, father to a murdered son, and I'll have my revenge in this life or the next. So anyways.
Yeah, that's the great part I remember. Good movie, by the way. The I'm sure, your kids, being being young, I'm sure they would trying to hide themselves when you're sitting there reciting that and or filming you and throwing you on social media, one of the two. So
Yeah, we'll
sure,
see.
it depends.
My kids, I think, have learned to not be too embarrassed by me with everything, all the podcasts that go on. And by like
Yeah.
this little flub I just had, I'm sure they'll be like, "Oh God, Dad, what's wrong with you?" So,
Well, so one thing about our podcast, Rajeev, is we don't edit at all. We have everything genuine and authentic. We are all, as I like to say, flawsome. We're all flawed and awesome, and so that's part of the beauty of
all
who we
right,
are. So
wonderful. I love it.
exactly. So one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast is not only because of what you talk about in your book, but because with the theme of our show, Social Impact Heroes, we see you as someone who's spreading positive change that has a positive impact on others, through your writing and through your work, someone that we call a social impact hero. And by our definition, that's an acronym which we can kind of get into during our conversation. But the first question I have is, do you see yourself as an impactful hero?
Wow. The humble humility in me says no. But I'd like to think that I try every day to do what I can to be a social impact hero. I think that's probably the best way to answer it. I think there are probably others out there who have done a hell of a lot more than me, from Malala to you name it. But I try in my little corner of the world to do whatever I can, and I think I try to live by that every single day.
Yeah, and that's really the definition that resonates with me, Rajiv, because for years I felt that I was too small. I was just one person, and how could I make a difference? How could I change the world, right, or impact humanity? Until I realized just a couple of years ago, well, 3 now because 2020, that that everyone has the ability, as you were saying, everybody has the ability to positively impact the world and positively impact others on a daily basis. So tell me, I had to come to that conclusion, but is that something that you've always felt, or did you have to learn that over time or come to it later in life like I did?
It was a bit more later in life. I mean, I kind of always kind of practiced it at some level, but it was never really a priority, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really until COVID hit where it really kind of overtook my thought process and trying to figure out how to be that change you want to see in the world, to quote Gandhi, so to speak. And
Yeah.
it was really
Yeah.
COVID. Really COVID that really helped me spark my why. Everybody knows about What's Your Why by Simon, and so for me, my why became do whatever I could to honor other people's dreams. And so that's really my why. And that over the last 3 years is really kind of what consumed me and is what allowed me to write the book. And it's allowed me, I think, to really lead from a place of this concept of enlightened leadership. And it's really kind of led us to where we are today. I'm here with you today.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the similar thing happened for me during the pandemic, and we're probably the same type of generation. And I know you talk about some generational differences and everything, which we'll get into a little bit, but I in the past few years I've connected and interviewed and spoken with hundreds of people from all across the globe. And there's so many individuals that I've come across, and maybe you have as well, that had that same kind of enlightenment or that same kind of, awakening or awareness that came as a result of, a global crisis, a global pandemic. So do you think that, obviously you said that it was kind of always there, right? And you didn't really practice it. And I think that's probably accurate for myself as well. Do you think that, just getting to something like a generational question, do you think that our generation really had to be forced into a corner to bring that to the surface? Or do you think that even without the pandemic, that maybe for a lot of people, they would just come to that because they hit a certain point in their life journey?
That's a really good question. I don't know if our generation, and I mean Gen X from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if our generation is really there yet. I think our generation is caught between one foot in the whole kind of thinking like a boomer versus one foot kind of in the millennial space. and really trying to figure out where to go and what to do. I have embraced both feet into the millennial and Gen Z world in terms of understanding and realizing that there's going to be a huge, massive shift in workplace demographic in the next 24 months. And that if I don't change, then I'm going to be left behind as a leader, and my company's going to get left behind, and we're going to see massive turnover and attrition in our business. And so, and I think those are the things that I think CEOs and leaders today are grappling with. And I still think that some are going to be in for a rude awakening. If we're facing, the Great Resignation, quiet quitting, all these different, terms that people use to describe these things today, I'll tell you, in the next 24 to 36 months, it's going to be worse if CEOs don't get a handle on it. And so I just feel like I perhaps maybe have gotten a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I met with the new dean at the USC at Marshall. This was maybe about 9 months ago, Jeff Garrett. And Jeff is the guy who built Wharton. And he basically turned Wharton into what it is today. And he's the new dean of the business school. And he and I sat down, chatted. I gave him a book, and we were chatting about this concept of enlightened leadership and what's going to be happening in the next couple of years. And he looked at me and he said, Rajeev, you're 100% correct. All of this is going to happen. There's not a damn thing anybody can do to stop it. There's nothing that Elon Musk can do to stop it, Bill Gates, not that they want to, but you know what I mean? But he's just using it as an example. This change is coming, and it's just a natural evolution of the workplace. Just like we went through a natural evolution with the development of the PC and the internet, and search and whatever it might be. This is what you're seeing now is just a natural evolution, right? In the last 2 weeks, you've seen new technologies like ChatGPT and OpenAI, powered by OpenAI, and all these things that are coming to the forefront. It's going to change the way people work. It's going to change how work gets done. It's going to change where work gets done. And if you don't understand that as a CEO, you're going to get left behind. You're going to lose your job. I'm telling you right now, you're going to lose your job.
Yeah, and that's where I really see you as being as being a social impact hero, because and it's incredible some of the similarities. But when I went through my changes in 2020, and I wrote a book myself. It's a fictional book based on life experience, but when I created iSpark Change in 2020. It was focused on positive change, and then also adding in that social impact component. And I started researching and reading, just hundreds, anything I could get my hands on about social impact and the changes that were coming in the workforce and in the workplace and in leadership and all of the things that you're talking about. Okay, everything that you're talking about. And I remember looking on LinkedIn, and this is probably early 2021, and there was something like 12,000 jobs when you typed in the keyword social impact on LinkedIn. And then I looked just a few weeks ago, because I was doing a talk on the effects of social impact in business for a group of franchise owners. And I pulled it up on LinkedIn, and there was over 60,000 jobs, from about 11 to 60,000 in a couple years, right? Less than 2 years. And so I think you're everything you're saying is accurate. I think you're on the right track. And that's where, I think there need to be more people like you that are having that conversation, that are sharing what you're sharing, that are writing about it. Because there are plenty of old school leaders. And I was one of them when I was, working in corporate. You go back, a decade when I was working in corporate and executive leadership, old school leaders that were taught by those boomers and, older generations that were practicing those old school leadership principles. And that doesn't serve Gen Z and millennials. And that's why you see these things you're talking about, right? Great resignation, quiet quitting, because they're not meshing, right? They're not connecting. So what do you think, what are some tips that you would give to, let's say, Gen X, or, some people that aren't part of the generation, that aren't part of Gen Z or millennials, but are in positions of leadership? What are some tips that you would give them, and maybe you share some stuff from your book on how they can connect with their teams and how they can empower their workforce and everything?
Yeah, no, look. So I kind of coined the phrase. I mean, I didn't create it. Someone else created it back in the 70s. It's the concept of enlightened leadership, right? And enlightened leadership essentially takes the concept of servant leadership that we all kind of grew up with and trained and learned about in our different organizations, and whether it's USC or wherever you were, you learn this concept of servant leadership. And for those of you who are not familiar, servant leadership is, hey, I, as a CEO or as a leader of the business or as a head of a team, whatever it might be, I work for you, right? The more, what tool do you need to be successful? Do you need an investment? What do you need to hire somebody? What do you need to be successful? The concept of it essentially is, if you're successful, then I'm successful, right? That's the basic idea of servant leadership. Servant leadership kind of started it's a concept from the church. It came out into the workplace, really led by people like Jack Welch and those kinds of things. And it's, we're both Laker fans, right? It's the idea of Jerry Buss saying, hey, hire people smarter than you, give them the tools to do their job and get out of their way, right? That's basic premise, foundation of servant leadership. Enlightened leadership builds on the foundation of servant leadership that says, hey, Rick, not only am I here to be a servant leader for you, not only here to take care of you and do what I can to help you be successful within the walls of this business, I want to do whatever I can to help you be successful outside the walls of the business. And that to me is the biggest mindset shift that CEOs, leaders, head of teams are going to have to figure out and realize that that's what employees are looking for. So if you look at it, if you see what's happening, Wall Street calls it ESG, environmental social governance, right? That's fine. It's easy. It's easy to remember, right? Public companies follow ESG. They look at board members. They're trying to figure out how do they focus on those kinds of things, because that's what the employees of the future want to see in their organizations. They want to know, what are you doing to focus on the environment? What are you doing to worry about social justice? What are you doing to look about governance in the business? Whatever the case might be. Now, I take it one step further, and I actually call it the Jedi. And I know you and I are both Star Wars nerds, and you've got BB-8 on your shelf, and my dog's name is Chewie. But I call it Jedi only because it's an easy acronym for me to remember, and hopefully it's an easy acronym for your listeners to remember. To me, I think there are 4 concepts of the Jedi that CEOs, leaders, head of teams need to figure out and realize. Number 1 is that over the next 24 to 36 months, the majority of the workforce is going to become Gen Z and millennials. And for the first time, women are going to be the majority of the workforce. And they focus a lot on this concept of Jedi, which is justice, environment, diversity, and inclusion. Again, justice, environment, diversity, inclusion. You focus on those 4 key aspects. You focus on how to build your business culture around those 4 key umbrellas, you'll be fine. Look, a lot of people say, oh, well, I can't choose, a lot of people kind of grew up in this world of, hey, I got to choose profit or purpose. And I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. No, you can have both. You can choose both. Because at the end of the day, one of the ways to help drive profit in your organization is reduce your attrition rates. The Society for Human Resource Management came out and said before COVID, turnover and attrition was causing companies over $30 billion a year. Post-COVID, that number has gone up by 5x. That's ridiculous. And that's insane. If you're leading a business, attrition is going to be one of your biggest problems. Well, how do you reduce your attrition? Well, you reduce your attrition by focusing on your employees, by giving them the tools to do their job, by focusing on different tools to allow them to be successful within the business as well as outside the business. I'll give you one example. At my company, by the way, our attrition rate isn't 0. I wish it was. We still lose people, but we do everything we can, and we let people know, and we communicate that, and we care. And one thing that we do, for example, is every election day, every year in November 7th, 8th, depending on the calendar, we give people a paid day off to go vote. Doesn't matter if it's on cycle or off cycle. It doesn't matter if it's a major presidential election or just an every other year type of election. We give them the day off to go vote. We've done it now 3 years in a row. And the reason why I did that was because I realized I sat there, and it was after the post-George Floyd thing and everything like that. And now with Roe v. Wade, some people who, and I don't want to get political here, but there's quite a few people who were not necessarily happy with that type of a decision. And I'm like, look, whether you are for these things or against these things, the biggest thing you can do is exercise your right to vote. And I'm not going to step in your way. So I'm going to give you a paid day off. So you will have no excuse not to get involved. So I give people a paid day off to go vote, and people love it. My employees look at that as one of the best perks of working here. Sure, 401ks and all this stuff matter. Having time off matter. But in terms of being able to help affect change for them and be that I sparked the change. That's one of the things that I wanted to do. And so we give them the day off to go vote. And if they voted by mail, great. Go get involved. Go take that day and go get involved in your community. You want to get involved in your community, and maybe that's not for you. Great. I don't care what you do with your time. Take it as a mental health day for yourself and go relax. Go spend time with your family. Go spend time catching up on things you wouldn't have caught up. And so there you go.
Yeah, and I can see that you're putting your people first, which is one of the things that businesses need to realize, is that it, like you said, it's no longer profits first. It needs to be about people and purpose and, planet even.
Well, look, I mean, you can still do profits first, but what I'm saying is that you don't have to choose profits over purpose.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that look, at the end of the day, if you're a business, and let's hypothetically, let's pick a number. Let's say you're a business and you're producing $3 million of profitability every year, $3 million of free cash flow, profitability, whatever your metric is. You know what? Take 30 grand and reinvest it back in the business. It's a rounding error to your business. You're not going to miss that $30,000.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If at my business, we actually donate money every year. So, for the first 2 years, a couple years ago, we started giving money to Operation Smile. We probably donated about close to $40,000 over a couple of years to Operation Smile. Operation Smile is an organization that helps people have that cleft palate surgery. People are born with that issue, and those people get ostracized in their communities. They sometimes commit suicide because they feel like they can never find love, whatever the case might be. So we give money for that, and people go and have those surgeries. We really affected the change of people's lives with that, right? Last year we shifted. We started giving money to a nonprofit called Rainbow Services, based out of San Pedro, a suburb of Los Angeles. And Rainbow Services is one of the leading providers of domestic violence support for women and children who have gone through domestic violence, and helping those people, right? Also last year we funded, it's going to be announced in May, but we funded different scholarships at high schools, to be able to provide, and we went and found high schools that are like on the border, right? Mm-hmm. So helping Hispanic kids, helping, who are on the border, who've come over, who need help, who generally want to go out and make a difference. And so we're funding, 3 scholarships. That'll be announced in May. So it's small things like that, and those things are rounding errors to my bottom line, but they make everybody feel good, and they make employee feels good, and they make our community feel good.
Have you seen? Thank you for sharing all those, because it shows that you're not only impacting, humanity and society through your writing, but also through your business and through the work and the different charitable endeavors. Have you seen that your employees, that they have they've been motivated by these things, or that they're on board, they want to be a part of it? Or have you seen an impact?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, look, I think just like with anything, there's certain employees who get really vocal about it, like, oh my God, that's amazing, that's awesome. There's certain employees who are like, oh, can we try this? There's certain employees who just don't say anything, right?
Yeah.
They just don't, right? No matter what you do, they just don't say anything. It's just, maybe that's their personality, it's fine. But look, at the end of the day, I sleep well, my team sleeps well. We're out there doing it, and at least we're trying. Are we perfect? No. Could we be better? Sure. Should we look at other areas to provide our impact and spend our money? Yeah, absolutely. And we're open to those, and I'm open to those things. But we're out there trying. We're out there on the front lines. So you can criticize me for, hey, why are you giving money to, to help fund scholarships for kids on the Mexico-U.S. border and not to kids in the inner cities? Well, fine. You can criticize me for that if you want, but at least I'm trying. And I ask you, what are you doing?
Yeah. And I think that that's the important part, is just the trying, that you're doing something, that you are making an effort, that you are doing something. And that was a big thing for me, like I said, for many years, where sure, I was, felt I was a good person. I was helping others in some small capacity, but there was always things that I could do, right? And as a business, running a business or owning a business, and I coach entrepreneurs and business owners every day, is that there's always the opportunity to do more, to do something if you're having success, and to give to others that are that can be impacted by your work and everything. So you've obviously worked for some large corporations. You worked for Dell and some big companies. And in what would you say is the biggest difference in being that, for a company to be that people first, or profits, but putting taking care of the people? What would you say is the biggest difference for the mega corporation to do those types of things, to be a Jedi, versus the small business?
Look, I think, the higher you go up the food chain, the Fortune 500 companies, you start dealing with Wall Street, you start dealing with your stock price, you start dealing with all other factors, right? At the end of the day, a small business, I think, has the ability to make greater change because it just don't have as much red tape to deal with. You
Mm-hmm.
know, usually it's one or two people who can make a quick decision and move on and do things, right? Whether it's supporting a food bank, whether it's supporting whatever, a local high school or whatever, right? Whether it's supporting a local Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop, whatever it might be, right? They have the ability to do that very quickly, a lot faster, right? And in larger organizations, the higher you go up the food chain in terms of, the size of the organization, things have to be done in a way where, you have to follow a certain path that goes through HR, it's got to go through legal, it's got to go through different things because you want to be careful you're not marginalizing people. And, you look at what happened to Disney in Florida, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole, to me, I think that was a big challenge, right, for Disney to deal with. And I think it led to eventually the change in leadership at Disney, right, where the whole "Don't Say Gay" bill came out, and I think they blew that because I think they went and they realized that they had to deal with 14 different constituents, right? Whereas, a small business, a one-man show, or a small company could say, look, we're going to support this, we're going to do this, and it won't make headlines. Disney makes a change, it's going to be on the news tomorrow, and it could affect their stock price, right? So at the end of the day, it's those kinds of things that really matter to certain organizations. And, at the end of the day, money talks. And unfortunately, we're still in a world where, how much money you're putting in someone's pocketbook is going to still drive, 99% of people's decision-making process. And I'm here to say, now, I'm a capitalist. I believe in that stuff. I have no problem with it. All I'm here to say is that you can do both, right? And it's not just me saying it. McKinsey said that if you can figure out how to solve this dilemma of doing both profit and purpose, you could potentially improve your bottom line by 5 to 7%. That's not me, that's McKinsey, right?
Sure.
McKinsey is probably the biggest consulting firm in the world telling you that, right? Look, and Deloitte, we all know about Deloitte. Deloitte came out and did a survey a couple of years ago, and it said, 90% of CEOs believe that culture matters, but only 10% actually ever do anything about it. I mean, that says something right there. So if you really want to improve your bottom line, if you really want to have this kind of balance of profit and purpose, then improve your culture by really focusing on what matters, and that's your internal customer. And if you take care of your internal customer, which is your employees first, then your external customers will fall right in line.
And I think that, thank you for sharing that. And I think that there is a shift. I think, you go back a few years and companies were just doing it to check a box, especially some of those larger corporations. They were just doing it to show, oh yeah, look, we have, DE&I, and it's part of our company. And then look, we're giving to this charitable, look, we supported this endeavor over here, and we're doing this over there. And now I think it's shifting to where they're showing that they're more purposeful, like companies like Pepsi, under the leadership of Indira Nooyi, or, these companies that are making these wide scale changes across the whole organization for their culture, for their purpose, for their people. So I want to get into just, to honor the theme of the show. I want to get into, and because I think you and I could probably talk about this for a long time, but I want to get into, just the hero component of the show. Every hero has their story of how they got to where they're doing the work and got to, that kind of change in their life. You said that the pandemic in 2020 was a big change. You decided to write your book and everything, but I know for me, I had the story of my book in my head for 20 years and never wrote it because I was going about life and comfortable and happy and everything until all of a sudden I had time. And I think you had a similar story, but talk about what, you had that change, but talk about what really sparked that change. What really drove that change for you to, decide to write Chase Greatness?
So, again, the concept of the book, or the foundation of the book in my brain had been sitting there for a couple of years, right? Just like with you, right? I wouldn't say it was quite 20 years, but for a few years, right? Like I always kind of believed in culture. I believe that at the end of the day, like this whole concept of enlightened leadership, I mean, I kind of was practicing it at some level. I just didn't have a name for it, right? I didn't know what to call it, right? And so, when COVID hit, so a couple of things happened. Let me back up in 2020. First, the guy over my shoulder died, right? And that kind of hit me on a personal basis, because growing up in LA, how could it not? And I'm a huge Laker fan. And a couple months later, COVID happens. And so, Rick, there was about a 24 or 48-hour window where I didn't know if I was going to have a business anymore. And I'm not saying that as a woe is me kind of a thing, but, almost 55% of my business was face-to-face events. We were putting on big, huge data analytic events, Microsoft Stack type of events. We probably had 4,000 or 5,000 attendees at our events, and attending one of our events is a couple $1,000. It's not cheap. And so it's not like going to a concert, whatever the case might be. And it was a huge driver of my business, right? And it's a huge cash flow driver of my business, right? Because you get paid up front, you don't have to pay people, you don't have to pay the hotels and whatever for a while, right? And so it's a great cash flow business, events. Well, that came and we lost all that business overnight. And literally, can you imagine if you're going like 100 miles an hour in your car and you slam into a wall, what happens? The whole car disintegrates. And that's literally what happened to us. And there was about a 24 or 48-hour window where you go through imposter syndrome going, what the F is going on here? What do we do? There was no mentor for me to call. There was no case study for me to read, because none of this stuff ever existed before. And you realize, you wake up one morning going, well, we better figure this out, because if we do, then maybe they'll write the case study about us. So there was that small window in there where I was really questioning my ability. I didn't know what we were going to do. No one did. And I wasn't sure I was up for the task. But you wake up and you realize, all right, you're here for a reason. And if it was easy, someone else would be here. And you were trained to kind of maybe not this, but you were trained to go figure out problems, and you've dealt with other big problems, and you're not quite as this, and you go figure it out. And so we did. And we figured it out. We made all the hard decisions we needed to make within the organization, and we survived and we thrived, and we've had the 3 best years of the company. And now events are starting to come back, still a little slow for us, but on the event side, because we're more of a training thing, but it was really quite the change. And it's that kind of 6-month window from March of 2020 through September of 2020 that really caused this mindset shift in me to kind of where we are today. And I think that was really it for me.
Thank you for sharing, because it as I said earlier, I know a lot of people went through similar experiences where they kind of had that, oh crap moment. I know I had one that lasted for a couple of weeks for myself. And then you could have gone 2 directions in that situation, right? You could have gone down the negative route or the positive route, and you chose the positive route. You chose to do something about it and be proactive in everything, which is what we talk about all the time in positively impacting others and not just yourself. And so that's just a great example of, if you're stuck in a different situation, you always have a choice to pull yourself out of that, and that's exactly what you did. And your company has had success as a result of it.
Yeah, the other thing I'm really proud of is in our organization, we did not take $1 of government money, not $1.
Wow, yeah, that is a tribute. That is a tribute to your organization, because I know many business owners that were left and right that were just like, ooh, free money, right? Free money. I'm just going to go take what I can, and for the wrong reasons and everything like that. So
yeah, it's taxpayer money that they took, and they didn't pay it back because the government then ended up canceling the debt. And so, look, that's fine, but we didn't take $1, not $1. And within 6-7 months of our changes that we need to make in terms of pay cuts and other things, we were able to get everybody back whole, and and we survived, and we've been thriving. And so I'm really proud of that with my team.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, because that is something to be proud of. So, I commend you for that, Rajeev, for sure, for sure. So in our HERO acronym, you've hit on the different components of HERO. It's H is honors your purpose, E engages the audience in mission, R ripples their message to spread positive change, and O opens your heart with the world. So I think you've done a little bit of all of that on the show. So thank you for that, Rajeev. One thing that I ask every guest on the show is that our goal at iSpark Change is to positively impact 1 billion people in the next 5 years through our community and our work. And we have an upcoming social media platform to do that with and everything. And we know we can't do it alone. So we need the help of leaders like yourself, enlightened leaders, I'll say, like yourself, to show others the way, because many people feel, as I do, that they're too small to make a difference. And so we value your thoughts as a social impact hero and enlightened leader. So I'm going to ask you to peer into the future, into the iSpark Change crystal ball, and tell me, what can the world become if everyone starts believing that they're a leader and that they can have an impact on our future?
Look, I think, first of all, that's a great question. Look, at the end of the day, if as a populace, we decide to put aside things like racism, we decide to put aside all these stupid conspiracy theories that are out there, we decide to stop all these senseless wars that are happening in certain parts of the world, there's nothing that we wouldn't be able to do, change, or conquer, right? We'd be able to cure things like cancer. We'll be able to use technologies that are now coming out to change people's lives. We'll be able to uplift people out of poverty. We'll be able to allow people to really focus on what it means to love and be happy, with who they are and what they want to be. I mean, so that's what we kind of have to look forward to. But it requires big thinking. It requires people who are willing to stand up and raise their hand. It can't just be you and I. So my challenge to the people that are listening is, who's going to join me? Who's going to join you? Who's going to stand up and raise the hand to say, look, this is not right. We're going to make change, and we're going to do change for the better, because it's not just about me. It's going to be about my kids and my grandkids and those upcoming generations. We need to now lay that groundwork for them and be that example that we are going to help them change the world. And in order to do that, you got to be able to understand and realize that it's okay to not have all the answers, but you got to try. You got to be willing to step up, stand up, and go fight for what you believe in.
Thank you for those wise words. And I think it's important to amplify that, that point that you made earlier about Gen Z and millennials, and women that are going to dominate the workforce. Because what I've seen, and tell me if you agree with this, Rajeev, what I've seen is that those generations, especially Gen Z, are far more willing to take that torch, are far more willing to be the change, as Gandhi said, to be empowered and to, take on that weight, that burden of, hey, I'm going to do something to make the world a better place. I'm going to do something to, serve my fellow, man or woman. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, I think this last election, if anything, should have taught people that, look, that Gen Z and millennials are not going to take, what's happening, lying down. They're going to stand up, and they're going to be heard. And you're 100% correct. And they want to bring that change to the workplace. And so, look, there's more power in my iPhone now than there was in the entire moon mission. Work can get done anywhere in the world, right? Bob Iger, who I admire deeply, came out, yesterday or the day before and said, he wants his employees coming back to be in an office 4 days a week. This is fine. My company, we're fully remote. And I get employees tell me all the time that they love it because they feel like they get 10 hours a week of their life back. Not having to get up, get dressed, put on makeup, or whatever the case might be, drive to an office, get stuck in traffic, frustration, whatever the case might be. They can spend that time with their families. They can spend that time pursuing other things that they want to improve their lives. And so, look, I got 140 employees. I don't have 140,000 employees like at Disney, for example. But look, again, do what you can with what you have. I'm doing what I can with what I have. Maybe one day it'll be bigger, but for now, we're content. We're doing everything we can, and I'm doing whatever I can to try to spark change within my workforce and within the community around me.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's a great example for, for people big or small, that they can make change, that they can do what they can, and that they should. And our audience has large chunk is Gen Z and millennials. So I'm sure these words will resonate with them. I'm sure they'll appreciate it, as they listen to the podcast and watch it later on YouTube. So Rajeev, where can our audience, connect with you, learn more about you, buy your book, all of that?
Well, look, the book is really resonating with Gen Z and millennials. It was over the holidays. It was hit number 4 in terms of bestseller in the leadership and business culture category. So that was really exciting. So obviously on Amazon, you can go there. It's now rolling out in audiobook format. I just got word it's available on Spotify. So if you go to spotify.com, and if you want to hear an audiobook version of it, it's available there. Or you can go to Amazon and get a Kindle version, or just get the hardback version as well there. And that's the best way to get the book. In terms of connecting with me, obviously I'm on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on Instagram at the Rajeev Kapur. That's THERAJEEV KAPUR. If I'm sure they can reach out to you, and you can get them my contact information. If somebody really, really wants to get a hold of me, they're more than welcome to do that. But yeah, look, I'm around. You can just Google me, you can find me wherever I'm at. I'm around. I live in Southern California, Orange County, and my office is here in Newport Beach, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, my old neighborhood. So I'll make sure all of that is in the show notes, so people can definitely find you and connect with you, and get a copy of your book. So Rajeev, thank you for taking your time today to share your heart and your wisdom. You came in, you over-delivered, as I knew you would. As a fellow Trojan, I expected that. But
there you go. Fight on.
Your passion is evident. You're filled with empathy, and you lead with a heart of service, and which tells me you're going to continue to have success in all facets of life. So this is only the beginning of your days as an iSpark Change social impact hero.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, man. Have a great year.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, Impact Heroes. It's our stories that connect us all. We loved hearing Rajeev's today. Rajeev Kapur, you're not only an inspiring and amazing human being, but you truly are an iSpark Change social impact hero. We'll see you all next time. Remember, Impact Heroes, every positive action can be a spark moment that has a ripple effect that spreads far beyond the initial act. So go out there and spark change. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, then please smash that 5-star rating on iTunes or Spotify and leave a review. We value your comments, and we want to hear from you in the community. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and we'll see you next week on the iSpark Change podcast.